All right, and we are live. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to InvestQ Live. Today, we do have a pretty interesting, we got a lot of interesting topics to talk about. Well, mainly two, and that is regarding Castellum CTM and the price action that occurred today, and the SOFI annual shareholder report. The SOFI annual shareholder meeting, we will be doing a live stream on this Wednesday. So again, tonight's pretty packed, and the first thing we're going to do before we go into the main topics regarding Castellum CTM and SoFi, we're first going to be breaking down the broader market and discuss what stocks, treasury yields, and investor sentiment are all telling us right now, heading into the rest of the week, and how it is we started this week. Because after we do that, well, first, I just like to do this with you guys to give you an overall analysis of what's going on, to tell you the bigger picture story of the broader market. But after we do all that very briefly, we're going to be covering Castellum CTM and what happened, and then briefly talk about the SoFi annual shareholder meeting. So if you're new here, please feel free to hit the like and subscribe button, as I do appreciate the support from you guys. And please comment below what it is you want me to cover in future upcoming videos and in any live streams. And if you have any other questions, feel free to drop it off in the live chat, guys. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, we are briefly going to be talking about the broader market. So as we see here, when we look at the heat map, and for some reason the heat map is a little cut off. Let me refresh this real quick. It's very odd. Very, very odd. So let's see here. So yeah, there we go. That's correct now. So first and foremost, when we look at the heat map, we can immediately get a sense of where the money is flowing, because, well, first off, it's a very green day overall in the market, not just with individual stocks, but also with the ETFs, like the Dow Jones, S&P 500, the NASDAQ, etc. But again, it does look like, because even though there's lots of green in the market today, that doesn't mean that everything was green, because as you see here, things like energy and healthcare were down on the day, and real estate as well. But more of the risk on assets, such as technology, specifically the semiconductor sector, communication sector with communication services with internet content and information, and then also, let's see, aerospace and defense. Let's see that. Aerospace and defense. Where are, did they reorganize my heat map right here? Where's my aerospace and defense? Oh, here we go. Aerospace and defense overall was green as well. So it does appear to be more of a risk on type of day, as money is flowing into the growth companies relating to artificial intelligence, and they're flowing away from the more safe, the quote unquote safer assets that are more risk off, like energy and healthcare, for example. Next, when we look at CNBC, you're going to be seeing here a few headlines and just the price action of what occurred this week. So first and foremost, you see the S&P 500. The market continues to trade near elevated highs. Again, as you can see here, they were up on the day almost 2%, and they closed at 7,000. Oh, I don't think they closed there. Let me check let me see. SPX. What did they close the day on? So they closed the day at, let's see here. We're trading at the elevated highs, and we closed the day at 7,577. Wait, no. Sorry, 7,554. That's the price that we ended the day on, and it was a gain for about 1.65%. Now, also the NASDAQ followed the same trend, and again, the highlight that you see right here, the Dow climbs more than 450 points for record close as oil tumbles on potential Iran deal. So DJIA had a record-setting day. Again, it climbed more than 450 points per the headline right here. Now, what's interesting as well is the fact that when we look at the bonds, let's check it here. So bonds, they were up on the day as well. And we've talked about it numerous times about how, hypothetically speaking, treasury yields, specifically the US 10-year treasury, when they are up on the day, that puts a lot of stress on borrowing costs and other risk-on types of assets like technology, semiconductors, anything related to artificial intelligence. But again, as we do know, and we have talked about numerous times, Not everything is black and white when it comes to the stock market. So you can't really determine exactly what's going to happen on a day, even when supposedly, even though the treasury yields are up and risk on assets are supposed to go down, that's not always how the story plays out. But there's various reasons why. And even though on this channel we look at things more long term, there's always information and data out there that can help you break down the information and break down the broader story of what happened on any given day. And next, let me see if I can find the actual headlines here. So, because the next thing I want to talk about is, so regarding the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, and it matters more, and regarding interest rates is what I want to talk about, because recent inflation reports that we have seen have generally came in manageable, which has increased expectations that the Federal Reserve may eventually begin lowering rates. And if borrowing costs lower over time, that could be a major benefit for companies that depend on financing and consumer lending. And that's very interesting that we're going to be talking about interest rates, because that will tie into the second stock that we're going to be covering, SOFI, because that does affect SOFI in a way, because due to the fact that it's a fintech and it's a bank company. If borrowing costs become, if rates raise, and inflation data comes in hotter than expected, and borrowing costs become, things raise, that will make it harder on SoFi. But if borrowing costs are not as expensive because rates are lowered, then that will help the company, and it will be I would say, a bullish data point for SoFi is all I'm trying to get in. So without going on too much of a tangent, that will tie into the second stock we're going to be covering today, which is SoFi. So overall, my analysis is that the broader market remains relatively constructive, but now let's move into the stock that everyone in the CTM community on Discord and in my channel personally most likely is really tuning in for and interested to hear about. And that's none other than what you see right here on Prophecy AI, which is Castellum, ticker symbol CTM. Because it was a pretty interesting day, because we had a news article that when I first read it and when I first saw the announcement come out on my Gmail, and I got it at 6:45 a.m., well before market opened, and even before on my Robinhood platform, it shows the pre-market price action as available. So when I saw this alert, or this PR report, this PR press release, my first thought process was, this is good. I like the fact that there's PR. I understand that this PR is the reason behind the parabolic move in the pre-market activity. But at the same time, I also understand that I had to temper my expectations due to the fact that all this is right here, and I'm not saying this is good or bad necessarily, because it is actually very good for the company long term, but it's not a contract that they won. It's not the completion of an accredited acquisition. It's not something that they can add to their backlog right now and something that will increase their annual revenue. But what it is an opportunity of it's a future pipeline opportunities to to acquire more contracts and to complete, let me see what the proper term is right here, because what's the proper word that I should be using? Sorry about that, guys. But just to be able to win a greater number of larger, more complex prime contracts across the United States Navy. That gives them a pipeline to be able to get and acquire and win those more complex types of contracts. Now, as we do know what caused the move, and again, I do want to reiterate, it is very important to separate price action, hype, and headlines from reality, because a lot of people, and this isn't from my perspective, but I want to talk about it from the perspective of other shareholders of Castellum CTM, because a lot of people immediately assumed that Castellum had landed a massive Navy contract with hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that they were clueless and they didn't understand it, but there's many people, not just on the Discord either, but other people that I know, other investors, or not even shareholders of Castellum CTM, but people that have paid attention to Castellum CTM on numerous different investors communities online. The ones that were overly optimistic. They just ran with the headline, not too much, but slightly, I would say. And to be respectful, maybe there could have been a little bit of a better job tempering their expectations with what the headline actually meant. Because again, this is good for the company long term, but this is just an opportunity for them to acquire and get more complex prime contracts. It's not a contract awarded right now. That's all I'm trying to say. But what I do like about it is the fact that they're competing with other companies, because again, there were 59 companies that were selected. They're competing with other defense companies that were, in a way, they're kind of punching above their weight, because there's other companies that were listed in the other 58 companies besides Castellum CTM that are a much larger market cap. So that does show that management is confident enough that they do belong a seat at the table, and they do belong, and they believe that they deserve these opportunities to acquire said contracts. Now, when Castellum announced this, again, as I mentioned, it does not automatically mean revenue was awarded today. It does not automatically mean backlog increased today. And it does not mean hundreds of millions of dollars immediately flow to Castellum, but it gives them the opportunity to, get to their goal. It's the next step to be able to complete their tasks of completing an accredited acquisition and get more contracts, and also get to that $100 million in annual revenue. And hopefully, as was stated in a previous video, in a previous video that I had, I believe it was in the video where I titled in the headline, in the thumbnail, I spoke with Castellum CTM CEO Glenn Ives about how they foresee them eventually being able to get on the Russell 2000 ETF. So, talking about the reality of what this headline is, how it is good long term, but investors need tempered relations. Let's talk about the actual price action of the stock. If we take a look, not at the day time frame chart. Oh, hold on. Sorry. We're still on SPX right here. But if we take a look at the 5-minute chart, let's look at the 5-minute chart. So, and the reason I say the 5-minute chart, or, we can look at the 15-minute too. It doesn't really matter. I just need a chart where I can see the overnight activity. When the announcement was made, you do see here that it was very parabolic. And a lot of people, due to price action alone, had overly bullish expectations with where the stock was going to be going in the short term today. But, and it's not really unfortunate, because me personally, I'm not a day trader of Castellum CTM. I'm a long-term investor. But it still did give a lot of disappointment among other retail investors, because they saw this price action, this peak right here, and then we shot all the way back down and got read to as low as 66 cents a share. And we closed the day at, what was it right here? 71 cents a share right there. Yeah, just under 72 cents per share. And that did give a lot of disappointment. So, talking about the price action, I want to discuss the potential reasons that, even though this wasn't a contract that they were awarded, or it was additional revenue, or anything that they can add to their backlog right now, I want to go over the reasons why this price action and this parabolic price activity happened. Because, first and foremost, number one, what most likely happened among retail investors is they likely misunderstood the announcement and assumed it was a direct contract award. So they immediately jumped the gun and thought, oh, wow, this is great. Let's jump in before it's too late. The second potential reason why this parabolic activity could have happened is CTM, it does have a very small float and relatively low market cap. Due to that, it makes the stock extremely sensitive to large buying activity, even from the retail investors, which, again, as I mentioned, due to just reading the headlines, not doing their due diligence, potentially not doing their due diligence, and just running with the big number that says $250 million, and they see the word contract there, they may have FOMO buyed and buyed in very heavily, which causes parabolic activity to the upside. And number three, momentum traders and algorithms likely jumped into the move once the stock started breaking through key resistance levels. And once the momentum starts in a small cap stock, things can get crazy very quickly. And That's from the parabolic side of things for bullish momentum to the upside. That's why the buying activity most likely happened. Again, comment in the live chat if you do believe that's not correct, or if there's anything that I did miss. I would love to get your input in the live chat, so feel free to comment below. But moving over to what happened immediately after, which was the fall, the big intraday crash that we had to as low as 66 cents per share on the day. This part didn't necessarily surprise me, but I do notice, due to all of the panicking from with all due respect, there was lots of panic in Reddit and the Discord community, or if not panic, definitely frustration. It didn't necessarily surprise me personally. I mean, there was a little bit of surprise because I was really expecting a sell-off, because we were up almost 80%, 80 to 85% in the pre-market. So due to the fact that we had such a percent swing to the upside, I'm not surprised that we had a sell-off, but I did think we were going to stabilize a little higher, anywhere between, I know this is a little bit of a big gap for Castellum, but anywhere between 80 to 90 cents. I thought we were at least going to stay there today. Maybe we would have sold off a little bit later off in the week, or maybe would have held, but nevertheless, I didn't expect it to sell off all the way to 66 cents on the day. So the dump intraday wasn't a surprise. How far it dumped, that did surprise me, even though we did close out the day green. So several reasons why this could have potentially been the case is, first off, profit taking, because from the perspective of people that have, because again, a microcap stock like this can be extremely sensitive to buying or selling activity, even from retail investors. So there's many people that have bought in, because again, Castellum CTM right now closed at 71 cents. But if we take a look at the bigger picture, there are people that I know of that have personally told me that, oh, I do not, that's very odd. Let me go back 1 second. Yeah. Oh, not that either. That's a 1 minute chart. My bad, guys. Let me see if I can find the proper one. Yeah. So there are people that I know that bought in above $2, closer to the highs of $2.83. And anywhere from $1.50 and up, there's lots of people that have been down for a very long time. And in these very volatile price swings to the upside at $1.50 to $1.60, to $1.50 to $1.60 a share, there are people that have a very high average cost basis. So there's people that showed their true color, not showed their true colors, but showed their true thought process on Castellum CTM. Even though they may have said that they do have a long-term conviction for the company, they truly were penny flippers and they weren't willing to hold through the volatility. And the fact that they bought in with FOMO kind of affected how they handled the trade or any intraday activity, because they wanted to take a quick profit and minimize the unrealized losses that they had and turn into a small realized loss. Or at the very least, there were people that they did have a good average cost basis, but they just loved the volatile parabolic move to the upside and they just wanted to take profit. So profit taking is the first reason why the fall potentially happened. What up, guys? I see you all in the live chat. So even with high gains, this is just an example of the potential. Yes. So first off, to you, that Vato, I love the username, by the way, bro. But first and foremost, I do like what you're saying here, because you're saying this is just an example of the potential that this stock has, Castellum CTM. That's a good point to make, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a second. But the fact of the matter is that we had a parabolic swing as 80 to 85% in the pre-market from an article that shows they didn't even get awarded an actual contract to add to their backlog or add to their annual revenue. Imagine what happens when they actually complete an accredited acquisition and they show that they can be consistently profitable quarter over quarter for like 2 to 3 quarters straight. Their revenue continues to increase. They get closer to $100 million in revenue, and PR for the company continues to improve, and they fix things like the website, and the equity group continues to do their job. Imagine the type of parabolic activity relating to actually executing on the things they said, how parabolic that would be. And the fact that I do believe within the end of this year to the beginning of next year, we will see parabolic upswings to the upside, and we will dump again, but we will stabilize at higher prices. and price points that were previous levels of resistance will now act as level of supports in the near future, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but personally, I would not be surprised if we do get to the $2 range sometime end of this year or beginning of next year or to the middle of next year is what I would say. So I appreciate your input, that Vato. And yeah, so yeah, Crazy Carl, that's what I was just saying right there. I was reading that Vato first, but Crazy Carl, I agree with you. That's from the bullish side of things, the people that are more optimistic for Castellum CTM, as I do agree with you with the statement I just said right there. And it was quite a surprise to wake. Yeah, I was surprised too, man. I was up pretty well in the pre-market with an unrealized gain, and I was up probably like 10 grand, give or take, in the pre-market. And again, I wasn't upset necessarily with the price action, the price activity, the price action, but again, I wasn't surprised that there was a dump. I was just surprised at how far it dumped is all. And let me see what's the second comment you said, that Vato. So it will go back up. My opinion was exactly that, profit taking. I could have did the same, and maybe I should have, but honestly, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of hindsight thought process, man, because when you think about it, there's everybody that's a trader and investor thinks that they could have taken profit here or there. But imagine if we did stabilize, if we shot up all the way to $1.32 like we did today, and imagine if we stabilized around $1.20 and it stayed there. Again, something like that can happen eventually, so you can't think with too much hindsight, because at the end of the day, nobody truly knows where a stock is going to go until the price action unfolds. You can use all the indicators to use the most likely scenario you think will take place, but it's just for a most likely best educated guess. Nobody has a crystal ball, and nobody truly knows where a stock is going to go in the short term or in the long term. But going back to why the price activity happened today, so the second reason why most likely the stock fell was because momentum traders often exit just as quickly as they enter. So again, it's just momentum trading, and algorithms, they may have recognized that the third reason is that algorithms may have recognized that the actual announcement wasn't immediately revenue generating and began selling into strength. And the fourth and final reason I'm going to state why I think the stock dropped on the day is because there continues to be speculation within the community, and it's regarding the legacy selling pressure from former shareholders and warrant holders. So it's making people, investors and shareholders, divided on their opinion on where it is Castellum CTM will go, and if there are people that truly has it out for Castellum CTM and will keep this stock down no matter what improvements they make. So those are the four reasons I'm stating as to most likely scenarios, the most likely reasons as to why Castellum CTM dipped on the day. Now, let's take a look at the bigger picture. Does this actually change the longer term story for Castellum CTM? And this is just my opinion, guys. Let me know in the chat if you think this does change the long-term story for Castellum CTM. If you believe it does, and you think the thesis is broken or changed, says yes. If you think the thesis remains the same and stays strong, comment no. For me personally, it'll be a no. So, in my opinion, today's announcement doesn't dramatically change the long-term thesis by itself in any way compared to other things I'm looking out for that could change the thesis. Because I want to point out that this does demonstrate something important. The market is starting to pay attention, and an announcement that does not immediately add revenue was still capable of producing an 80% move, tying into what you said, Carl, about even though that this doesn't immediately add revenue, it still can go parabolic pretty substantially for that 80% gain that we saw in the pre-market. So again, imagine what happens when one of these things get announced, such as a significant acquisition, a major contract win, meaningful backlog growth, strong quarterly results, additional institutional participation, and if we saw any of those things, imagine the type of parabolic price swings we'll get to the upside, because those types of developments could potentially have a much larger fundamental impact in today's announcement. And in my opinion, I am very confident that either an acquisition, a major contract win, Their backlog and their revenue is going to continue to grow. And I do believe that these things are going to continue to improve quarter over quarter and year over year. And next, when it comes to what was discussed on the channel in a previous video was strategies that were mentioned by Glenn Ives, specifically saying that management has repeatedly discussed growth through acquisitions, expanding scale, increasing annualized revenue, and pursuing larger opportunities. So I want to point that out there. It just shows us that there are bigger whales waiting to make these plays happen. Exactly. That's my I'm on the same thought process with you as well, Vato. So I appreciate you in the comment section showing some engagement and making the live chat, giving us some engagement the way that you are. I really appreciate all the guys that do support and show up to my live streams. It really does mean a lot to you. And I love doing these things live because I know you guys can correct me in real time. And I actually have time to address the questions that you have right here, right now. So I do love that, guys. Now, finishing off with Castellum CTM, what I'm going to be watching is when, and I know that nothing's guaranteed. Castellum CTM could not get an acquisition. That's a very true point. Nothing's guaranteed, but in my opinion, I am extremely confident, without marrying Castellum CTM or being overly bullish or one-sided or having, as they say on Reddit, hopium. I am very confident that they will complete an accredited acquisition. I am highly confident about that. And 1 second, guys. At that, I agree, man. So yeah, that's my take on it. So I'm personally watching for CTM when they announce that acquisition. And if you watch on the channel for a while, you know I've said multiple times that I have fairly high confidence they're going to do it. And the bigger question isn't whether they can do it, but the bigger question that you should be asking is, whether it's a good, in quotations I'll say, is a good or a bad acquisition. Because the thing about growing through acquisitions like the way that they plan, I do think it's fitting for Castellum CTM as, since organic growth is stable and safer, but it's slower. And there's less risk involved. But if they just grow organically, it could slow the process down and it could kind of like leave them behind and leave them in the dust. And there's a saying that I believe in, that the biggest risk in life, and this is for my personal life, but it also could apply to Castellum CTM being a risky micro cap penny stock, is the biggest risk in life is to take no risk at all. Calculated risk, not gambles, but calculated risk, which is what I think Castellum CTM is doing with their aggressive plan to complete an acquisition, because growing through acquisitions can be one of the faster ways for a company to scale, but it's also one of the riskiest ways for a company to grow if management does make poor decisions. And not all acquisitions create shareholder value equally. Some diminish the value of shareholders and keep them struggling, I would say, or they increase the value of shareholders. The shares of shareholders. And the reason that is because when I evaluate acquisitions, these are the things that, when I evaluate the acquisition that they eventually announce, I will be looking out for these main things. First, is the business profitable or at least close to profitability? Second, does it add strategic capabilities that CTM doesn't already have? Third, was it a reasonable valuation? And quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice. This is just what I'm looking at. Fourth, are there clear synergies between the acquisition and CTM's existing operations? And fifth, can management realistically integrate the company without disrupting the core business? And if management checks those boxes, acquisitions can become a powerful tool for creating long-term shareholder value. Now, on the other hand, the flip side of things, there are definitely warning signs that investors should watch for. And I'm not saying that Castellum CTM is displaying those red flags or warning signs right now. I'm saying a way for you to analyze whether if it's Castellum CTM or any company that's talking about growing through acquisitions, there are quote-unquote bad ways to go about acquisitions where they don't do it properly, which is often one that is purchased at A bad acquisition is usually one that is purchased at an inflated price. And it's also one that requires massive shareholder dilution. And it's also one that adds very little profit despite adding revenue. And it also could be one that is done primarily to make the company look bigger rather than making the company better. So it's kind of inflating the data in a way and making things look good on paper. That's what a bad acquisition look like. And I don't know about you, but I have seen plenty of examples throughout market history where management teams chased revenue growth, overpaid for acquisitions, and ultimately destroyed shareholder value. So my approach to this is, hey, Mr. Stav, welcome to the chat. I felt stupid. Sorry, guys. Don't mean to disrupt, but I felt stupid selling at 70 cents having made 20%. So Mr. Stav, just curious question, bro. And again, thank you for tuning in. I know you've been with me for a while, for a few months now, but you sold at 70 cents like it shot up and then it dipped down and you just sold it? I'm just kind of curious to know, bro. But either way, don't beat yourself up too much, man. So my approach to this, guys, is when CTM eventually announces an acquisition, I'm not going to automatically celebrate it just because it's an acquisition, even if everyone else is. I'm not going to view this as bullish or negative. I'm going to do my due diligence first before I do anything emotional. I'm going to be looking at the details. I'm going to be asking, how much did they pay? What are the margins? Will it increase earnings potential? Will it strengthen the company's competitive position? And most importantly, does it create long-term value for shareholders? Because in my opinion, the quality of the acquisition matters far more than the fact that an acquisition happened. So that is one of the biggest things I'll be watching over the coming months as the CTM story continues to develop. So now let's shift over to the other stock, the other individual stock I said we were going to be covering on this live stream together. And that is SOFI stock. And SOFI, let's check out to see what it says on Prophecy. So SOFI, currently trading and closed the day at $17.10. Well, I think it closed the day actually at $17.13 as we're down 3 cents on the after hour session. But it closed the day at $17.07 and it has a 1 year bullish projection of $20.52. And as you know, SOFI does have an event or it has something that's taking place this Wednesday, and that is none other than its annual shareholder meeting. Because as you do see here, these events, they don't usually contain major surprises, but investors will still be listening carefully because if you tuned in or saw what took place, or even the very popular video that happened that has over 2,200 views regarding Big Bear AI and how they were approved an additional 500 million shares, they now have approved a total of 1 billion authorized shares right now. They didn't issue the shares from what I've heard, but they have them authorized, and they were authorized. So that was a big thing that shareholders of Big Bear AI were looking towards too. But please let me know in the live chat if there's any polls or good, Mr. Stab. I'm glad you're fine, man. But and again, don't beat yourself up too much, bro. Again, we're still at the 70 cent range, man. So I mean, you can still accumulate your position because we are at lower prices. We did dip down. So again, the most important thing though is you make sure that you have a thesis that you made on your own. Don't listen to what I say or listen to what other people that believe in Castellum CTM say. I believe in Castellum CTM, but that doesn't mean you have to. So build your own long-term thesis on why you're bullish on Castellum CTM. So, but going back to backtracking to SOFI, I'm not aware of any polls or votes like that that shareholders were really looking to see what the results were. That's not what I saw, but there are still things that shareholders of SOFI are going to be looking out for. And a few key points of what it is that investors want to hear and what they're going to be looking at is member growth. That's the first thing they're going to be checking for. And because SOFI, it has already done an incredible job growing its member base, and investors want confirmation that trends remain strong. The second thing that they're going to be paying attention to and looking out for is profitability, because SoFi, the first is member growth, the second is profitability, because SoFi has finally reached consistent profitability, and shareholders want management to continue building on that momentum. And the third thing would be lending trends, because investors will be paying attention to how management views personal loans, student loans, and broader consumer credit conditions. Now, I told you we're going to be tying this in with SoFi earlier because there were some headlines relating to the new Fed chair when his name is Kevin Warsh. Perhaps the most important topic for SoFi will be about interest rates. And if rates eventually move lower, several things could happen. What are those several things that you might be asking? Hey, had no biggie. Nice to see you, man. I hope you enjoyed the SpaceX IPO live stream, and you also checked out the videos I made on Black Sky, the live stream and the long form video, as I did make that content specifically to your request. If you didn't, feel free to check that on previously, man. And it was about a week ago when I made it, man. But going back to SoFi and rate cuts, lower borrowing costs could encourage increased lending activity, which would be very beneficial and positive for SoFi, and it also could improve refinancing activity. Consumer demand may also strengthen, and overall financial conditions could become more favorable for SoFi stock as a whole. And another thing that they're going to be looking for is none other, because I'm not sure who's speaking. That's awesome, Hando Biggie. But I'm not sure. Again, you guys can tell me who it is that is speaking in the annual shareholders meeting if you do know, because I'm unaware of. But investors, especially if Anthony Noto, the CEO, does speak, they'll be listening to see and pay attention to see if he has built a reputation for focusing. He has built a reputation focusing on execution and long-term growth. But what they're going to be paying attention to is how confident he speaks in the annual shareholder meeting, or even if it's not Anthony Noto himself, whoever does speak is going to be a representative of management, and they're going to want to see and hear the tone of their voice if they speak in a confident way regarding forward guidance. So let's open this up to a little bit of Q&A. I personally want to hear from you guys. I mean, I got a lot of y'all's input on Castellum CTM. I haven't got a whole lot of input on SoFi. So real quick, let me know if you want to talk more about CTM. What do you think about the price action today for the company? Do you think the market overreacted? And do you think that this was just simply profit taking? I already got some of y'all's input, but for some people that joined recently, let me know. And regarding SoFi stock, what are you expecting from the SoFi shareholder meeting? And what stocks are you watching this week? Drop your thoughts in the chat below, as I do want to hear. So I'll open this up a little bit for some discussion if you guys want to talk. I'll give it a few minutes again. Let's see what else, because I covered everything that Bato said. I covered Crazy Carl. I covered Mr. Stav. Yeah, so here, let's actually look at a little bit more price activity. Why not? So take a quick look at SpaceX for a second. Why not? While I give you guys a chance to respond. So again, there's only been 2 open trading sessions for SpaceX, but we closed the day even stronger, and we closed the day at $192.50. But we're currently at $200 in the after hours activity. So again, do you guys think that this is gonna get rug pulled? I want to know y'all's opinions in the comments section. And also, I'm curious to know, relating to the Russell 2000, do you guys actually think that Castellum CTM is going to get on that ETF anytime in the near-term future? And by near-term future, I'm talking about less than 2 years. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens 2 to 5 years, in that range. But if they can do it in under 2 years, that would be pretty impressive in my opinion. But we'll see if it does happen. But I've been rambling on enough. And if there's no more further questions right now, guys, if you enjoyed tonight's stream, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button. And also, side note, thank you all for the love that you guys give me, because we have hit a few milestones. The recent milestone that we just hit, besides the Big Bear AI video that currently is at 2,200 views, we also recently hit 500 subscribers. We're currently at 505 subscribers. I'm pushing for this goal to get to 1,000 subs within 1 to 3 months. So if you do feel that I've added any value to your long-term investing journey, feel free to hit the like and subscribe button. Also comment below what you wanted me to see in future upcoming videos. And also feel free to share my communities, online communities, and my YouTube channel to anybody that is interested in investing, because word of mouth referrals that you guys give does help the channel grow. And as I grow, you grow as well, and we all grow together like a family. And again, I do appreciate all of the support that I get from you guys. I really do. I do my best to not be like the other types of investors that cover stocks that are kind of computer robotic and they don't take into consideration the people aspect of things, because I want to get you guys involved and I want you guys to feel like you're a part with me, like we're family in a way. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that Vato. Again, I already knew you were thinking that, and that was your opinion. And again, as Warren Buffett does say, um, real quick, I just want to pull up this quote. Warren Buffett. I've said this quote a bunch of times, but the people that did sell off early, again, remember, if you are a long-term holder of Castellum CTM, feel free to remember the big quote that Warren Buffett has always said: the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. And the people that did sell off with this current price activity, they did show that they're more on the short-term side of trading, and they don't truly have a long-term conviction that they established on their own in Castellum CTM. So with that being said, I'll close it out here, guys. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for the next video we're going to do. I'm going to do another live stream. And also, feel free to join into the SOFI annual shareholder meeting that I'll be doing on Wednesday at 9:15 a.m. Think people were buying SpaceX instead. Figured the whole sector would ride. Was the whole space sector down? Let me check that out, Crazy Carl. Redwire. I didn't pay attention to space today. Yeah, Redwire is down almost 2%. Rocket Lab is almost... Oh no, Rocket Lab, they had a good day. They were up almost 7% on the day. What about Lunar? Lunar was down 3.23%. Planet Labs, how are they doing? So everything was down except for SpaceX and Rocket Lab. So it's not a surprise to me that both Rocket Lab and SpaceX were the only ones going, because it does show that, one, Rocket Lab is the most trusted space companies, besides most trusted space companies in the speculative space stocks and market as a whole. And it has the biggest market cap and it's the most developed one compared to the other one. So I'm not surprised that one rose on the day. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case that you're mentioning, Crazy Carl, about money's flowing out of the individual space stocks specifically to go into SpaceX. Now, what did you say that about those? So, but since I've been a shareholder, we've had 3 parabolic spikes. This one being the largest, absolutely. I've been a part of 3 parabolic spikes as well. There was 2 last year that I remember and recall, and this is the 3rd one here. I think this week we'll definitely go back to 85 cents. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do swing up as well, Vato, because I do think, because I even said it in the Discord community. And again, if you aren't a part of the Discord community, bro, please feel free to go below and join and click on the link for the Discord community. But yeah, I do think that I don't think people consider this a meme stock right now, but I do think that there is an overall concern that people view this as a pump and dump type of stock. And real quick, talking about pump and dumps, I do want to state that the story is a little bit different from other pump and dump companies, because the thing about it is, when it comes to other pump and dump companies that we have seen, that there's high market manipulation, and it's overall a company that, even though it pumps, it has bad underlying business. Castellum CTM is a little bit different, because 2 of the things that we saw last year, the 2 pumps we saw this year, and even the one this year, the 2 last year and the one this year, main reasons that they pump for the most part is the 3 times that they did pump, it was all relating to PR that came out for the company. Now, the 3 times that it also dumped as well and it fell was for a few reasons. There's always a reason regarding speculation about how they're worried. So last year, it was mostly about the fact that there wasn't enough institutional interest. I mean, we still need more, but there was less even than there was now. They were not more concerned to see if they can actually become profitable. And we did pump after we had a profitable quarterly report, but then it dumped because there was speculation to whether or not they can continue to be profitable quarter over quarter. And overall worries about whether the business is going to grow and whether or not they can actually, what's the proper term? Because without going on too much of a rant, other pump and dump companies have horrible underlying business and is purely driven by hype. This company is not driven by hype alone because, as me and you both know, the underlying business is continuing to improve. And right now, as I did say, besides just profit taking, the reason we're not stabilizing at higher prices is because there's certain things that they need to execute on to prove that this company is a long-term winner, such as completing that accredited acquisition, getting more contracts, and acquiring more contracts and fixing PR related issues. Once that's the case, I would be very surprised if we don't pump up and we do dip. But if we don't remain and stabilize at higher prices after they complete all that, then I would start to be a little bit more surprised. But right now, due to the speculation of Castellum CTM, I'm not too surprised it's happening right now. And it's different from other pump and dump companies that pump up specifically on hype and they dump, not because there's still speculation as to whether they can increase, but it's overall clear that the business is absolute dog crap. Dog shit, I'll say. So this is not a company that is dog shit. The underlying business is good. They just got to prove that they can do what they say they can do. Exactly. It's just a waiting game, my friend. It's just a waiting game. That's all it is when it comes to Castellum CTM. But thank you all for tuning in. I'll close it out here. So with that being said, InvestQ live out. Stay safe. Keep making good decisions to your long-term portfolios. And I'll see you on the next video. And I'll see you on the next live, man. Peace.